This is TWiT.
I told the very nice caller not to be afraid, but the first thing, if I were attacking the U.S., I'd go after the financial system, then I'd go after the electric power grid, and then I'd go after our food supply system, and Bob's your uncle. The war's over. Amy, am I crazy?
You're not crazy. I was talking to one of the FDA commissioners, maybe 6 weeks ago, and we were just talking about the global supply of food. And, the U.S. has not made shoring up our there's an intersection between cybersecurity and our food supply, and that just hasn't been a top priority. And I recognize that we can't inflate the number of government employees by 4x or 5x. But the truth is that, we are probably less secure than we should be. And partially, I think that's because our federal government tends to make the states, leave it up to the states to do things, and then the states leave it up to the local cities to do things. We just don't have this big coordinated plan. So you saw a lot of, because of COVID, ransomware is way up in local governments and hospitals and, things like that. We know that there have been critical infrastructure breaks, and Andy Greenberg, who's at Wired, who I think does really tremendous reporting.
Yeah. He's
great. He, I guess in January, had a story about maybe Russia has already started something. Russia definitely sent malware to Ukrainian government computers, and it was a malware that overwrites the master boot record. And then it runs this big, long file corruption program and overwrites file types and directories. It's pretty brutal. And, if they're wiping out sensitive data at a government level, I don't know. This is part of the problem. I actually, for a couple of years, I don't remember where I wrote this. It might have been Wired. We don't really have an agreement upon what constitutes a digital act of war or a cyber act of war. And so I think we're in kind of a tricky situation right now.
That's actually one of the things I told the caller was we need a Geneva Convention, a Geneva Accord. There's certain things the international community agrees are beyond the pale, even in warfare, things like chemical warfare. And we need that for cyber warfare because we're all vulnerable. I think one of the things maybe protecting the U.S. is the fact that we have our own hackers. And if you do this to us, we can do it to you. I don't know what there is to protect Ukraine. This is from the Harvard Business Review this week. The cybersecurity risks of an escalating Russia-Ukraine conflict. The implications for business of conflict in Ukraine, whether conventional, cyber, or hybrid, will be felt far beyond the region's borders. Russia's formidable cyber forces preparing to unleash a new wave of cyber attacks on Ukrainian and Western energy, finance, and communications infrastructure. This is a way that a war in Ukraine could spiral out of control and have global implications. The Harvard Business Review said conflict in Ukraine presents the most acute cyber risk U.S. and Western corporations have ever faced. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, recently issued a warning on the risk of Russian cyber attacks spilling over onto U.S. networks. I wish I knew more about what we're up to. I imagine we have our own hackers.
I find it interesting that when we hear government officials talking, the story that we're seeing is very much boots on the ground, troops moving around. We don't need government. We get commercial satellites that show us exactly where troops and things are. Anybody can take a look.
CNN had a great picture of a bridge built from Belarus.
Yeah.
There's no mystery in that regard.
There's not, but algorithmic warfare is far less costly. It's less visible. It's easier to cloak. It can be far more damaging. So, I don't know. I wonder if the visual elements that we're seeing are cover for the digital conflict that's maybe already underway, and that has me concerned.